As we grow older, something inside us begins to soften. Not just our bodies, but our memories, our thoughts, our sense of time. We begin to reflect more than we react. We remember more than we speak. And slowly, we realize that the greatest gift we can offer our children is not always our advice, our opinions, or even our truths, but our quiet presence, our acceptance, and our restraint. You see, the older we get, the more we understand that wisdom isn't about saying more, it's about knowing what not to say, what to keep sacred, what to carry in silence, not out of fear or shame, but out of deep, enduring love. There are some truths, some emotions, some confessions that can do more harm than good when spoken. Not because they're wrong, but because they shift the weight of our journey onto the shoulders of those still finding their own path. This video isn't about secrecy. It's about dignity, about the invisible threads that hold respect and love together between generations. These are the 7 things you should never tell your children, not because they can't handle them, but because you respect them too much to make them carry what was never theirs to carry. So sit back, take a deep breath, and let's walk through these lessons together, heart to heart. If this message touches something deep within you, if it reminds you of your own journey as a parent, a grandparent, or a child, please consider subscribing. Share this with someone who may need this gentle reminder, because sometimes the most powerful conversations are the ones we never have. Secret 1: the depth of your regrets. There's a quiet place in every aging heart, a place filled with unspoken regrets. It's where the what-ifs live. What if I had taken that job? What if I had left sooner? Stayed longer? Spoken up? Stayed silent? What if I had loved myself a little more? Or forgiven a little faster? These regrets don't always shout. They whisper, late at night when the world is asleep. They come to us in memories we can't quite shake, in songs we haven't heard in years, in the empty chair across the table. But here's the truth most elders know. Not every sorrow needs to be shared with your children. It's not about hiding your past. It's about protecting their future. Because your regrets, when told too often or too heavily, can become their fears. Your pain can become their burden. They may start to believe that life is a trap, that choices only lead to loss, that love always ends in regret. And that's not the legacy you want to leave. Yes, your regrets are real. They matter, but they don't define you. The deeper truth is that you survived them. You learned. You grew. And now you carry not just the weight of your past, but the wisdom of it. If you ever choose to share your regrets, let them come wrapped in hope, not sorrow. Let them teach, not haunt. Let your story say, I've been through this, and I still believe in joy, because your children don't need to inherit your pain. They need to inherit your strength. Your life is not just a story of regrets. It's a testament to resilience. Secret 2: the truth about your loneliness. There's a silence that settles in after a certain age, not just in the room, but in the soul. It's the silence of loneliness. You can be surrounded by family, visited by grandkids, checked in on by neighbors, and still feel a deep, aching solitude that no phone call or photo can truly touch. It's not something we often talk about, especially not with our children, because what would we say? That even after a full life of love and purpose, there are days when we feel invisible, that sometimes we miss the way someone used to say our name, someone who's no longer here, that even with everything, there's a hollowness we can't quite explain. No, we don't tell them that, not because we want to lie, but because we want to protect. We don't want them to carry our loneliness into their own lives, worrying about us with guilt in their hearts. We want them to live boldly, not looking back with fear that we are suffering in silence. So we smile, we say we're fine, and we are in many ways, but the loneliness still lingers. Here's the hard-earned truth. Loneliness in old age is real, but it doesn't mean we are lost. It means we are still human, still needing connection, still holding space in our hearts for love, for laughter, for meaning. If you do share this secret one day, let it be an invitation, not a confession. Invite them to sit longer, to listen deeper, To remember that their presence is the most powerful gift of all. Because loneliness fades in the warmth of understanding. And sometimes all we need is for someone to simply stay. Secret 3: the mistakes you made as a parent. There's a quiet place in every parent's heart where old mistakes still echo. We rarely speak of it. Not at birthday dinners, not during holiday calls, not even when our children are grown and parents themselves. But we remember the times we raised our voices when we should have listened. The moments we were too busy, too tired, too distracted to notice their silent pleas for attention. The decisions we made thinking we were doing what was best, only to question them years later. We don't tell our children these things, not because we're ashamed, though sometimes we are, but because we know they carry enough already. The last thing we want is to burden them with the weight of our what-ifs. They see us now through a softened lens, often with love and even admiration. To reveal our flaws too openly feels like tearing down the very foundation they stand on. So we keep this secret. We forgive ourselves quietly, hoping that the love we gave, even if imperfect, was enough. Hoping they remember the warmth of our arms more than the sting of our scolding. Hoping that they see, in hindsight, that we were growing too, right alongside them. If ever you do open up about these regrets, let it be not to seek forgiveness, but to offer perspective. Because every parent, no matter how wise or well-intentioned, stumbles. What matters is that we never stopped trying, never stopped loving, and that, perhaps, is the most important legacy we leave behind, not perfection but presence. Secret 4: how often you think about the end. It's not morbid, it's not dramatic, it's just honest. As we grow older, thoughts of the end visit us more frequently, quietly, respectfully, like a shadow that walks beside us. Not because we are afraid, but because we are aware. Aware of the ticking of the clock. Aware of the fragility of our bodies, the slipping of memory, the way time now feels like sand through open fingers. We don't speak of it to our children, not because they can't understand, but because they shouldn't have to carry it. They still see us as strong, capable, eternal even. To admit that we sometimes sit in silence and wonder, how much longer, would shift something in their world. It might bring worry where there should still be peace. So we keep this secret, not out of fear, but out of love. We think about the practical things, wills, letters, treasured heirlooms. But we also think about the intangible. Did I say enough? Did I love them well? Will they remember my laugh, my stories, the way I held their hand? Sometimes we cry, quietly, not from sadness, but from the enormity of it all. The beauty of a life lived, the ache of knowing it has limits. But here's what we also know. There is dignity in this awareness. There is wisdom in facing the end not with dread, but with deep gratitude. And there is peace in knowing that the love we've poured into our children and grandchildren will echo long after we're gone. That is our quiet prayer, our secret hope, that we've mattered, that we've loved well enough to be remembered. Secret 5: the depth of your loneliness sometimes. It's not constant. It doesn't cloud every day, but it visits, unexpectedly, like a chill draft under a closed door. Loneliness, not because we are unloved, not because we are forgotten, but because the world has grown quieter. The phone rings less often. The house, once bursting with life, now echoes with memory. We smile when our children visit, when the grandkids run through the living room. But after the door closes and the car pulls away, silence wraps around us like a shawl we didn't ask for. We don't tell our children how deep that silence sometimes feels, because they're busy, because they have their own burdens, their own lives, because we don't want to seem needy or worse, clingy. So we say, I'm fine. We say, I've got plenty to do. We fill our time with puzzles, television, gardening, old letters, anything to keep the stillness at bay. But some nights, when the moonlight spills into the room and sleep doesn't come easy, the ache rises. Not just for company, but for connection. For someone who remembers who we were before the lines on our face. For someone who doesn't just talk to us, but listens, truly listens. And still, we keep the secret, not out of shame but out of protection, for them and sometimes for ourselves, because we know this season of life comes with solitude, and we try, with quiet strength, to find beauty in it. But oh, how a phone call, a warm cup of tea shared, or a long conversation under a summer tree could soften the loneliness we dare not name. Secret 6. The full extent of your physical pain. They see us walking slowly but surely, and they assume everything's all right. But the truth is, most days something hurts. It could be the dull throb in the knees, the sharp pinch in the back when we bend just a little too far, or that burning tightness in the hips after sitting too long. Pain, like an old shadow, has become our quiet companion. Not always loud, but always there. And yet, we don't talk about it. We minimize it. We say, "I'm just a little stiff today," or we laugh it off. That's what happens when you get old. Because we don't want to burden our children with it. We don't want to seem like we're falling apart. What they don't see is how we brace ourselves before standing up. How we pause at the bottom of the stairs, gathering the strength to climb. How we lie awake at night, shifting positions, praying for just 1 hour of painless rest. There are days when putting on socks feels like a battle. Days when just getting through the morning is an act of courage. And yet we carry on. We don't complain. We adapt. We use creams and cushions, heating pads and faith. Because deep down we know that pain may be part of aging, but surrender isn't. Still, we wish they knew. Not for pity, not for sympathy, but so they might understand the strength it takes to smile. The heroism hidden in the simple act of rising from a chair. Pain lives with us now, but we've learned how to walk beside it with grace, with grit, and with gratitude for every day we're still standing. Secret 7. Thoughts on mortality and legacy. As we grow older, it's natural that our thoughts sometimes wander to the inevitable, our own mortality. It's a topic many avoid, but it quietly lives in the corners of our minds. How often do we really think about the end? More than you might guess. It's not about fear or despair. Instead, it's a deep reflection on what our lives have meant, the legacy we'll leave behind, and the hope that those we love will carry on with strength and love after we're gone. We don't often share these thoughts with our children. Maybe it's because we want to protect them from pain or worry. Maybe it's because these reflections feel too personal, too heavy to voice. Or maybe we just don't want to be seen as fragile or vulnerable. But these unspoken thoughts can weigh heavily on us. Thoughts about unfinished dreams, regrets, forgiveness, and the desire to be remembered well. We carry hopes that our children will live their lives fully, free from guilt or obligation, not feeling trapped by our memory or our expectations. And we want them to know that while life is finite, love is infinite. These quiet reflections aren't burdens to pass on. They are the silent prayers of a heart that has lived, loved, and learned. By keeping these thoughts close, we protect our children from sorrow, but also remind ourselves of the preciousness of each day, the importance of peace, and the power of acceptance. It's a delicate balance, holding the truth within, while offering a gentle assurance that love transcends even the greatest goodbye. There are some truths that are meant to be kept, some wounds that heal silently, some burdens that are lifted simply by choosing not to pass them on. Growing older brings clarity, teaches us that love isn't always spoken in words. Sometimes it's shown in what we choose not to say. Respect, tenderness, and guidance don't always come from honesty alone. They come from knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet in order to protect. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your presence be your legacy. Because the older we get, the more we realize that the most powerful conversations are the ones we never have. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with someone who might need this kind of reflection. Drop a comment below. What's something you've chosen not to say to your child? Or what did your parents never tell you that you're grateful for? Until next time, stay connected, stay present, and remember, you don't have to say everything that matters.